Hi, I'm Sid Lamb. I'm Professor Emeritus of Linguistics and Cognitive Sciences at Rice University. I'm speaking on support for idealism from theoretical linguistics, the field of consciousness as a relational network. Why start from language? Well, language, for all its seeming complexity, is more amenable to analysis than other cognitive structures. So, investigation of language is one of the best ways to proceed to an understanding of human mind and nature. Tim Pulyu is a former student of mine. The first question is, what is a linguistic system? That's the information system that supports an individual's language processing. Everybody has one. It's different from everyone else's. The big question for linguistic theory is, what does this system consist of? What is its nature? The usual answer is that it's a set of symbols and a set of rules. Set of rules to go with each set of symbols: phonemes, words, lexical items, morphemes, meanings. That answer is faulty. So let's look a little more closely. What is a word? What is a phoneme? What is a morpheme? A morpheme is a meaningful part of a word. In the case of boy, that's a word consisting of one morpheme. So how do we answer questions like this? Well, you have to look at what anything is related to. How is it related? So you take it boy. As a morpheme, it's just one unit. It's represented as three phonemes in sequence. The sequence is shown by the attachment of the lines at the bottom of that triangle. Now, so we're looking at this object boy. We see that it's represented on the one hand as its phonological representation, but it also has a meaning and it has grammatical properties. Now, I want you to focus on that item in the middle, boy. We lay out its relationships. Once the relationships are laid out, that item disappears. Its presence adds no further information to what is in those relationships. In other words, you can remove that symbol that was in the middle without any loss of information. What seemed to be an object is just a connection in a network of relationships. So now we look at the phoneme. What is a phoneme? Well, there's B. On the one hand, it participates in other morphemes like Bob and bed. On the other hand, it has phonological features that represent it. So phonemes are likewise not objects, but just positions in a relational network. This applies also to O and Y. Y, for example, participates in toy. On the other side, they're represented as their phonological features. And on the upper side, we have the meaning and the grammar, just symbolized here by boy and noun. Those represent network structures. They are purely relational. Now let's look at meaning. Meaning is conceptualization. Meanings of all linguistic forms are in our perceptual conceptual systems. So let's look at the meaning of dog. These are perceptual and conceptual properties of dog. What a dog looks like, that's a visual network. What its bark sounds like, an auditory subnetwork. What its fur feels like, a somatosensory subnetwork. All of these are perceptual information. Each one is a subnetwork with many nodes each, interconnected into a larger network, something like this, where each blue circle represents a subnetwork of properties. The A is auditory, what a dog sounds like. The P is the phonological, that's the English representation, dog, D-O-G. M is memories you have of individual dogs that you have known. This, of course, varies from one individual to another. Visual is a very large network of all the visual properties of dogs. And then there's additional information attached to C, such as types of dog. This is information that varies from one speaker to another. Individual dogs that the subject has known. Anatomical features of dogs. Relationships of dogs to cats and other animals. Behavioral properties. These are all relational properties, not objects. What about the grammar? Well, syntax is a network of syntactic instructions. They too are relational. They're involved with sequence, as in just like the sequence of D-O-G, making up dog, or B-O-Y for boy. They're based on categories. They are grammatical categories, and they're derived from conceptual categories, also purely relational. So our conclusion is that the seeming existence of linguistic objects is illusory. What appear to be linguistic objects, like lexical items, phonological units, concepts, and all, have no existence apart from their relationships. All these relationships form a relational network. This is spelled out in greater detail in these two publications of mine. The 2016 is more up to date, and it's available online. Conceptual and perceptual structure and other meaning structures are intimately tied up with the rest of linguistic structure, such that there is no boundary between the grammatical, lexical, and semantic conceptual. In other words, a complete dictionary would include an encyclopedia. This is where language gets us to all of human knowledge. Language and the knowledge system are one system. Meanings of linguistic forms are in our perceptual, conceptual systems. They are in our minds, not in an outside world. We tend to assume that the structure of the perceptual, conceptual system is determined by the real world, but such systems vary from one language to another, and even from one person to another. So we have the concept of the individual mental cosmos. The semological system is encyclopedic. It comprises the conception of the entire cosmos. That's the individual mental cosmos, IMC. Like the rest of language, it is entirely relational, as I have just shown. Internal mental models. These are internal mental models. They represent the entire cosmos. That's what the IMC is. Our talking and thinking is about our mental models. We assume that they represent some external reality. That's an assumption without much support. People usually suppose they are talking about that assumed external reality. So we now come to the next question, the individual linguistic system versus the language, a general system. What is a language? The usual view is that there is such a thing as a language shared by members of a speech community and assumed to be separate from those individuals. That view is illusory. There is no such thing as a language as distinct from the linguistic systems of individuals. Every individual linguistic system is different from every other. There's no such thing as a language as distinct from the linguistic systems of individuals. This is all spelled out in greater detail in my paper, What is a Language?, which you'll find in Selected Writings of Sidney Lamb, 2004. Now we're going to apply that same line of reasoning to the individual cosmic system. We can apply the same line of reasoning to the individual mental cosmos. It could be called also the individual cosmic system. We have seen that the IMC is the semantic conceptual system, which is not separable from the linguistic system. And it's a network of relationships. It has no objects at all. The IMC is the individual's model of the cosmos. So we ask, how are the IMCs of different people related to one another, and how is the IMC related to the cosmos as a whole? As we have seen, we have individual linguistic systems, but there's no language as a separate entity, only the individual linguistic systems. So we apply that same line of reasoning to conceptual systems. We have the individual mental cosmos that each person has, but Why should we assume that there is a cosmos as a whole, in addition to all those IMCs? We have no actual evidence that there is such a thing as a physical cosmos as distinct. The way Arthur Eddington put it, it is difficult for the matter-of-fact physicist to accept the view that the substratum of everything is of mental character, but no one can deny that mind is the first and most direct thing in our experience, and all else is remote inference. Now, some people might come up with a counter-argument as follows. People have sensory perceptual systems that bring in information about an independent outside world. My response is threefold. Perception is unreliable. We have no evidence that any information at all from perception is reliable. And perception depends entirely on projection. Projection is, for example, you see green on leaves on the tree outside your window. That greenness is in your mental system. It's not in the leaves. The sound of the trumpet sounds like it's out in the orchestra pit, but it's in your auditory system, in your mind, not out there. When you stub your toe, you feel that the pain is in your toe, but it's not there. It is in your mind. Perception is thoroughly dependent on projection. We actually have no evidence at all that any perception is reliable. The only thing we experience directly is our own mental activity. As Jakob von Uichkuhl put it in his Theoretical Biology, no attempt to discover the reality behind the world of appearance, that is, by neglecting the subject, has ever come to anything, because the subject plays a decisive role in constructing the world of appearance, and on the far side of that world, there is no world at all. The only evidence we get about the world is presented to our minds by our perceptual systems. So the only thing we experience directly is our own mental activity. The perceived externality of the cosmos is illusory. The assumption of an external mental cosmos is mistaken. It is like that of a separate language, as distinct from the linguistic systems of individuals. So life consists of mental activity, that is, traveling the mental pathways in your own personal relational network, a mental system. It's your IMC. The individual mental cosmos. Now, this brings up Chalmers' recent paper, 2019, David Chalmers, Idealism and the Mind-Body Problem. It's available online. He presents a detailed analysis of the varieties and implications of each of three possible versions: micro-idealism, macro-idealism, and cosmic idealism, which I'll define in a moment. All three have challenges to plausibility, but cosmic idealism is less implausible than the other two. Micro-idealism is the thesis that concrete reality is wholly grounded in micro-level mentality, that is, mentality associated with fundamental microscopic entities such as quarks and photons. Macro-idealism is the thesis that concrete reality is wholly grounded in macro-level mentality, that is, in mentality associated with macroscopic, middle-sized entities such as humans and perhaps non-human animals. And then cosmic idealism is the thesis that concrete reality is wholly grounded in cosmic mentality, that is, in mentality associated with the cosmos as a whole, or with a single cosmic entity, such as the universe or a deity. All three possibilities have challenges that render each of them less than plausible, but cosmic idealism is less implausible than the other two, according to Chalmers. The most important challenge to cosmic idealism is what he calls the constitution problem. This is the problem of how cosmic experience can constitute the ordinary macro experiences of subjects like us, the issue of how the cosmic mind constitutes macro minds. I have a proposed solution. It involves separating conscious from unconscious. We have separated conscious minds at the macro level and the collective unconscious at the cosmic level. Subjects like us have limited fields of consciousness. The cosmic mind is outside of our awareness. That is, it is unconscious to subjects like us. It is collective unconscious, a single comprehensive mental system. Everyone's mind is part of it. Therefore, we are all joined at the mental level, but that joining is unconscious to most people. There is one collective mind shared by all. That is the collective unconscious. It is what Chalmers calls cosmic mentality. It is unconscious to ordinary people, therefore outside of awareness. What is conscious is the separated mind. Each separated mind projects and perceives an IMC. What is conscious is that separated mind, the macro level of Chalmers. Each separated mind perceives a world which is assumed to be external. That's because of projection. That's the IMC. And the perception of externality is, as I said, the result of projection. Everyone is different from every other. The reality is that the separation is an illusion resulting from the limited field of consciousness. The reality is cosmic mentality in which all participate. To reach it, you have to expand the field of consciousness. That's the appeal of psychedelics. And there are other techniques, in the long run more reliable. Spiritual exercises like those of Prather, 1981. Motivation is an important prerequisite. Cosmic mentality can be reached by expanding the field of consciousness, but you have to be motivated to do so. You have to be willing to give up illusions, especially the illusion of separateness. That means relinquishment of individuality and willingness to join cosmic mentality. Our minds are part of the cosmic mind anyway. Thanks for your attention. Now I have some references. You can click on pause if you want to look at more detail. And that's it. We can stop the recording.